Welcome to this deep dive that we put together just for you.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so today we're going to be looking at something that can be
Mhm.
really tough, especially for autistic adults in the workplace,
Okay.
and that is triangulation.
Yeah, triangulation can be a really tricky thing to deal with, for sure.
Right, and we're going to be looking at all the different aspects of it based on the sources that you provided.
Right.
We're going to, look at how it works and why it can be particularly hard
Right.
for, someone on the spectrum to deal with.
Absolutely.
And we're going to try to come up with some ways that maybe you can protect yourself.
For sure.
So,
Sounds good.
yeah. So why don't we start with just kind of breaking down what exactly triangulation is?
Yeah, so triangulation, it's a form of manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
It really thrives on controlling information.
Okay.
So think of it as almost like weaponizing information
Right.
to stir up conflict,
Mm-hmm.
but also conveniently kind of dodging any personal accountability.
So it's like deflecting the blame.
By creating chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you think that plays out in the workplace? And why might autistic adults be more susceptible?
When I think about it, people on the spectrum are very often
Yeah.
known for being very direct.
Mhm.
They have a strong sense of fairness.
Absolutely.
They take things very literally.
Yeah.
And so when you put that into a work environment where information is being twisted and used against people,
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. It can be a tough situation for sure.
Right. And it seems like those very qualities that could make someone a great employee
Mm-hmm.
are the ones that are being used against them,
Absolutely.
which is concerning.
Yeah, it is. So for instance, someone might misinterpret your directness as aggression or
Right.
or maybe use your literal interpretation of instructions to set you up for failure.
Gosh, that must be so frustrating. You're trying to do your best,
Hmm.
follow all the rules,
Right.
and then all of a sudden you're finding yourself.
Mm-hmm. Questioning everything.
Yeah, and that self-doubt is exactly what those who engage in triangulation
Mhm.
really want.
Yeah.
It makes it easier for them to control the situation.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. But it's important to remember you're not alone in experiencing this.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So this kind of manipulation can really come from anywhere in the workplace. I
Right.
mean, the material you sent me talked about coworkers,
Yeah.
management, even HR.
For sure.
So, let's take a look at how each of those players can be involved in this.
Yeah, let's start with coworkers.
Okay.
So have you ever heard of the term whisper network?
I have, but isn't that just typical office politics?
It can be,
Okay.
but for someone who values honesty and directness,
Right.
navigating that world of whispers and half-truths
Mm.
can be
Mhm.
incredibly difficult.
Right.
Imagine trying to work collaboratively when you're constantly wondering who's saying what about you behind your back.
Yeah, it creates an environment of distrust, and it's just hard to know who to believe.
Exactly. And that confusion can actually be used against you.
Oh, gosh.
Right. So your coworkers might intentionally give you conflicting instructions
Right.
or spread rumors
Huh?
to damage your reputation, or they might even try to isolate you
Mm-hmm.
from the rest of the team.
Yeah, that's just cruel.
It is.
In fact, one of the things that you sent me had a specific example of someone whose coworker gave them conflicting instructions
Right.
and then later denied it,
Oh, wow.
leaving that person looking bad in front of their boss.
Yeah, that's a classic triangulation tactic.
Yeah,
It shifts the blame,
right.
creates doubt,
Yeah.
and makes you question your own perception of events.
Yeah, I could see how that would be really damaging.
It is.
So we're talking about blame shifting. We have to talk about managers.
Of course.
I mean, they hold so much power in the workplace,
They do.
and they can easily manipulate situations to their advantage.
Absolutely. A manager might set unrealistic expectations and then hold you accountable for not meeting them.
Right.
Or they might pit employees against each other to avoid addressing deeper issues
Okay.
within the team.
So it's all about them and not
Wow.
about the actual work.
Exactly.
Yeah, the source material that you gave me actually mentioned a situation where a manager was constantly shifting priorities.
Oh, wow.
And, this employees scrambling to keep up.
Right.
Of course, they end up focusing on what the manager thinks is the wrong task,
Yeah.
and then they get blamed for not being on top of things.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah, it's like up.
It does seem that way.
Right?
That's a great example of how managers can use triangulation to maintain control
Mm-hmm.
and avoid taking responsibility for their own actions.
It's interesting because we often think of HR
Mm-hmm.
as a resource for employees,
Right.
but we have to remember their primary role is to protect the company.
Exactly.
Us company.
Right.
Yep.
But isn't HR also supposed to ensure a safe and inclusive environment?
Well, yes, but their priority is often the company's bottom line.
Right.
And that can sometimes conflict with the needs of individual employees.
Oh, I see. So it's like a conflict of interest.
Yeah, can be.
The source material even mentioned HR using gaslighting
Uh-huh.
and victim-blaming tactics
Yes.
to deflect complaints.
That's right. They might try to minimize your concerns,
Okay.
shift the blame back onto you,
Right.
or even retaliate against you for speaking up.
Wow. There was one example where someone reported harassment and then was hit with all these negative performance reviews.
Yeah.
It's almost like they were being punished for coming forward.
It's a way to discredit the employee and protect the company from liability.
Yeah. And that can be incredibly disheartening,
It is.
especially for someone on the autism spectrum who,
Yeah.
may already be struggling to navigate these really complex workplace communications and social dynamics.
Absolutely.
Knowing that this kind of manipulation can come from all directions must be exhausting.
It absolutely can be.
Right.
But before we get into, how to deal with these situations,
Right.
it's important to remember that you are not the problem.
Okay. Correct.
Triangulation is a systemic issue that impacts many workplaces.
That is a good point because it's so easy to internalize these experiences and start blaming yourself,
For sure.
especially if you're already dealing with the challenges that come with autism.
Absolutely.
So it's important to reframe it.
Yes.
It's not about you being too sensitive or,
Right.
not fitting in.
Exactly.
It's about manipulative tactics being used to control and disempower you.
Yes.
Recognizing that is a good first step in protecting yourself.
It is.
But what can someone actually do
Yeah.
to navigate these situations?
That's a great question.
What kind of practical advice can we offer?
Well, the source material offers some excellent guidance.
Okay.
One of the most important things you can do is document everything.
Okay, so let's dig into that a little bit more in part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll explore how to create a paper trail,
Mm-hmm.
how to recognize those patterns of manipulation,
For sure.
and how to build a support system.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're talking about documenting everything.
Yes.
What does that actually look like?
Well, it's really about
Mm-hmm.
creating a clear record of interactions,
Okay.
especially when you feel like things are a little bit off.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
for example, let's say you have a conversation with someone
Mm-hmm.
and you walk away from that conversation feeling a little bit uneasy.
Yeah.
The best thing you could do is follow up with an email,
Okay.
just summarizing what you discussed,
Right.
any agreed upon actions.
Mm-hmm.
That email can be incredibly valuable.
Oh, I see. So if they try to say, oh, no, that's not what we talked about, or
Exactly.
that wasn't what I meant,
Yeah.
you've got it
You've got a written record.
right there in black and white.
Yeah, it's like having a witness to the conversation.
Wow.
And it's not just about protecting yourself from, outright lies or anything like that.
Right.
But it's also about just creating clarity,
Okay.
in situations where communication might be muddled.
Right.
And this can be particularly helpful for
Mhm.
autistic individuals who thrive on clear, direct communication.
Right. Because if someone's being vague or,
Yeah.
trying to manipulate the situation,
Yeah.
then having that,
Having that written record can really
yeah.
help to kind of cut through that confusion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And as you're documenting those interactions,
Okay.
start to pay attention to patterns.
Yeah. Okay.
Are there certain people who consistently give you conflicting information?
Mm.
Are there certain situations where you feel particularly set up for failure?
Right. So those are like red flags.
They are like red
That
flags.
something's not right.
Exactly. And when you see those red flags, document them too.
Okay.
Keep a detailed log of emails,
Okay.
meeting notes, performance reviews, anything that supports your observations.
It sounds like a lot of work. I mean, if you're already feeling stressed and anxious about the situation.
It can be overwhelming,
Yeah.
but you don't have to do this alone.
Oh.
Building a support system in the workplace can make a huge difference.
So having, a couple of trusted colleagues or
Yeah,
people that you feel like you can rely on.
absolutely.
Okay.
So how do you find those people in a workplace that feels so full of manipulation?
Right. It's like,
It's tough.
yeah.
Look for people who demonstrate a commitment to fairness,
Okay.
transparency.
Mm-hmm.
They might be the ones who speak up in meetings
Okay.
when they see something unjust happening.
Right.
Or they might be the quiet observer
Mm-hmm.
who just seems to really have a clear understanding of the dynamics.
Right. So like someone who's not afraid to call out bad behavior.
Yeah.
Or someone who's a good judge of character.
Exactly.
Okay, those are valuable qualities.
Those are in a
And
workplace element.
having those people in your corner can really help you feel less isolated.
More confident in addressing these situations.
And I guess they can also kind of give you a different perspective.
Absolutely.
Right. And
Validate your experience.
Yeah.
Help you strategize ways to navigate these challenges.
Yeah, it's like having a sounding board.
Exactly.
To help you process what's going on and figure out what to do.
And sometimes the best way to move forward is to move on.
You mean leave the job?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big decision.
It is. It's not one to take lightly.
All right.
But sometimes, even with the best documentation, the most supportive network, a toxic work environment is just too much.
Yeah.
So if you're finding yourself constantly feeling anxious, stressed, maybe even physically ill because of the workplace culture, you might want to consider whether staying is really serving your well-being.
So it's about knowing your worth.
It is.
Knowing when to walk away from a situation that's not good for you.
Absolutely. And remember, you are not alone in facing these challenges.
Right.
This is a very widespread issue.
Yeah.
And lots of people, especially autistic adults, struggle with these complex dynamics.
Right. It's not just me.
No.
Okay. That's it to know.
Yeah. So beyond protecting ourselves, is there anything we can actually do to change these patterns?
Right. Can we shift the culture?
Yeah.
In a workplace where this is happening all the time?
That's a fantastic question, and it leads us to a really empowering perspective.
Okay.
So the source material focuses a lot on the challenges.
Right.
But what about the strengths?
Oh, you mean the strengths that autistic people bring to the table?
Exactly.
Okay.
Autistic individuals often have a very strong sense of justice.
Right.
They have a keen eye for detail and a remarkable ability to analyze patterns and systems.
Right. So those are all really valuable qualities.
They are.
In any workplace.
For sure.
So instead of just being victims, we can actually use those strengths to challenge these systems. Yes.
That's a powerful shift.
It is.
It's not about just surviving.
Right.
It's about thriving.
Exactly. It's about using your strengths to create positive change.
So that can happen individually or collectively.
Exactly. So what do you mean by collectively?
Well, I was thinking like maybe getting together with other autistic individuals and allies to create a network of support and advocacy.
That's it.
Yeah.
Imagine a workplace where honesty, transparency, direct communication are the norm.
Wow.
And those manipulative tactics are just called out and rejected.
That sounds like a dream.
Yeah.
But how do we get there?
It starts with awareness.
Okay.
It starts with conversations like the one we're having right now, sharing our experiences, supporting each other. Refusing to accept those harmful dynamics is just the way things are.
Right. So it starts with us.
It does.
But it can lead to bigger things.
Individual empowerment is crucial.
Yeah.
But collective action
can create lasting systemic change.
That's a great point.
And that brings us to our final thoughts for this deep dive. So as we wrap up this deep dive into workplace triangulation, I really hope you're feeling empowered.
I hope so too.
You know, knowledge is really that first step in protecting yourself.
Absolutely.
And don't forget about those unique strengths that we talked about, you know, your analytical skills, your attention to detail, that commitment to fairness.
Right.
Those can be such powerful tools for change.
Absolutely. Instead of just focusing on how to survive.
Right.
How can we thrive? How can we use those strengths to create a more ethical and equitable workplace?
That's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
You know, how can you, as an autistic individual, leverage your strengths to not only protect yourself, but to really advocate for work environment where everyone feels safe, respected, and valued?
That is the question, isn't it?
It is.
So before we go, I just want to emphasize that you are not alone in this. Triangulation is a problem.
It is.
And there are other people out there who get it.
For sure.
If you've experienced this or if you have some strategies that are worked for you, we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Share your thoughts. Share your experiences in the comments. Your voice matters.
It does.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you.
We hope you feel more informed and equipped to deal with all those crazy workplace dynamics.
All the craziness.
Keep learning, keep advocating,
Yeah.
and keep being your amazing autistic self.
Absolutely.